Awesome. So there was a man who is getting ready to tee off, except he's teeing off around that area in the front part of the area where you tee off, the ladies' tee. And he hears this huge voice from the clubhouse. Will the man on the ladies' tee please step back to the men's tee? And the guy looked up, he's trying to focus, and he's trying to focus so he can finally get a hold of that ball. And again, second time, they call out from the clubhouse, will the man on the ladies' tee please step back to the men's tee? And finally, he'd had enough, and he cries out, will the announcer in the clubhouse kindly be quiet and let the man play his second shot? Have you ever heard of the term, a good old college try? Have you ever heard of that term before? I thought of that term today as I'm prepping the sermon, and so I thought I'd Google it, try and find out what the background is. It goes all the way back to 1917. I don't know if you're familiar with Billy Sunday or not. Billy Sunday was an evangelist, and he wrote an article in a newspaper, and it had to do with something that John McGraw was the manager for the Giants at that time. And John McGraw used that phrase, good old college try. Nothing wrong with the country, but this was a college try. Good old college try. And it was about a rookie who was fresh out of college, and he had been chasing a fly in the outfield that was just absolutely impossible to catch. And of course, he didn't catch it. And so John McGraw says, yeah, that was just a good old college try. Fresh out of college, yeah, full of enthusiasm, but no way possible. And so it actually comes from that moment. As far as we can tell, he coined that phrase. And it probably refers to people whose experience had not properly taught them the impossibility of such a catch. So it was actually coined as a baseball phrase. I'm not going to use it tonight as a baseball phrase, but it talks about someone who is experienced, apparently has not taught them sufficiently. They keep trying the impossible with lots of enthusiasm, and they keep failing. Now, Babe Ruth, several years later, he used it, but in the way he used it, it suggested that it also included a desire to impress people. Yeah, doing something that's impossible, just to, impress them with their effort. I have given the old college try. Experience eventually teaches me that is an impossibility. Now, I'm going to suggest that Israel gave it the good old college try. The problem is they stopped. Experience eventually said to them, you can't do this. And the challenge then is for us to add to our experience faith, because there are times in which God says, I know you've tried this before, and it failed. Probably even a few times. But right now, today, I'm going to encourage you, do it with faith. Now, I've shared this story with you before. I'm going to share this with you before we get into Exodus 13. But I remember that when we were needing to buy a larger house, and I'm not going to go into all the details. I've done that before, so I'm just going to kind of focus on just a few main things. And as we were thinking about buying the house that we're presently living in, we needed to do that because we just had a fifth child. We'd had 4 girls, 1 boy. We needed a larger house. And so we were looking around. We found this house, and it was actually larger than what we felt that we needed, but we kind of just saw the house to humor ourselves, I guess, and take a break because we were packing and not packing, because we were just busy and such, and life can be hard sometimes. So we just wanted to just go on, not necessarily a date, but a family outing to visit this house. And God began to speak to my wife and I. And I realized, but wisdom, this isn't going to happen. It's not that the house was like really expensive, but it was beyond our means. I tell you what, houses back then, we're talking 1998, so much cheaper. If we bought our house back then, it would be by far the cheapest house in our neighborhood, by far. So we just said, okay, God, if this is what you want us to do, you've got to make a way. Now I'm going to share a figure. I usually don't do that, but I'm going to share a figure with you. From that month on, my business did $1,500 extra every month. We were kind of impressed the first month. The second month, same thing, so it wasn't just a fluke. Third month, we're thinking, wow, maybe God is trying to say something to us, so God began to pave the way. And God did a number of, I'm going to call them miracles, because we came up against obstacles, and God moved the obstacles. It was like, whoa, God is totally in this thing. I'm going to just tell you, a year later, May of 1999, we closed on the house. From that moment on, that extra income went down to zero. Went down to zero. God, it's as if God had turned the spigot off. It was as if he had said, okay, I was providing for you because you couldn't, but now, because we were able to set aside money for the down payment, but now I'm going to just, you're going to work hard and you're going to provide. But God stepped in a very unusual, unprecedented, supernatural way for 1 year exactly providing that extra for us. You know, I was, as we look at Israel's experience, for 1 year, church, 1 year, God miraculously provided manna for them. Remember last week we looked at what God done, 20 miracles before they came to Mount Sinai. It took them 2 months to get to Mount Sinai, and then God had them parked there for almost a year, about 11 months. Parked there for about a year. And while they were there, God provided manna every single day, except on the Sabbath. So on Fridays, they collected twice as much, so they didn't have to collect any on Saturdays. But they were told, don't collect more than what you need. And it says this, that they always had enough, never too little, never too much. Fast forward 39 years, they've now crossed the Jordan River, and they are in Gilgal. That was a city, that was a town that they created, that became their headquarters, their army headquarters. It tells us in Joshua 5 that the very day after they celebrated Passover, God turned the spigot off. No more manna. It was as if God was saying, I've been supernaturally providing for you these past 40 years. Every day. Sometimes it was water from a rock in addition to the manna. Sometimes it was quail, and huge amounts of quail. In a passage we're not going to read, I'm just going to refer to, God gave them quail for 1 month, to the point where they had so much, they were sick of it. Sick of it. That reminds me of like when I was a kid and I ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches like every day. So my mom would kind of, make it more interesting, and she would put in there a peanut butter and raisin sandwich. Never try peanut butter and raisin. Does not work. Oh, well, I'll say I did not eat when I graduated from high school, I did not eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for years. By the way, I do love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches today. Oddly enough. But the spigot was turned off. God, in essence, was saying, for 40 years, I supernaturally provided for you, like every day. And now, I need you to go in and take the land. Work the land, because I will empower you to make wealth. And actually, Deuteronomy 8 says that their ability to make wealth was a sign of the covenant. God's provision for them. It is a noble thing to work hard to provide for our families. God will come through. Listen to, some of you need to hear that. God will come through. But Israel's experience, they had, at this point, Numbers 13, they had God providing every single day. Actually, we're going to read Numbers 13, but you don't have to do this. I'm going to back up to chapter 11, actually chapter 10, and I'm going to read this verse to you. You don't have to turn there if you don't want to. I'm just going to read this. So they set out from the mountain. We're talking Mount Sinai. So they set out from the mountain of the Lord and traveled for 3 days. Numbers. Did I say Exodus? Sorry, Numbers. I'm really throwing you tonight, aren't I? If you're in Exodus, I'm reading from a very different book in the Bible. Just turn to the next book. Shay, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Numbers chapter 10, verse 33. So they set out from the mountain of the Lord. They've been there for a year. They set out from the mountain of the Lord, traveled for 3 days. And then they skip down to chapter 11, verse 1. Now the people complained about their hardships in the hearing of the Lord. And when he heard them, his anger was aroused. He brought punishment, discipline. They lacked faith. They had God providing for one solid year and plus 20 miracles before they got to Mount Sinai. You would think now leaving within 3 days, if they encountered hardships, they would maybe pray about it. But they didn't. They complained, and God judged them. Chapter 11, verse 4. The rabble with them, the rabble is those who were foreigners that decided, a lot of them Egyptians, decided, wow, you know what, it seems like the Lord is with Israel. I think they're leaving Egypt. I think I'm going to go with them. And so there was a number of people that actually left and went with Israel. They're called the rabble. The rabble with them began to crave other food. And again, the Israelites. So it's now infected the Israelites. So the Israelites started wailing. I'm not misreading. They are wailing because they have to eat manna every single day. It's like when I was growing up, and my mom didn't do this every day. We either had eggs and toast or oatmeal. Eggs and toast, or she kind of alternated it. I felt like oatmeal was coming out my nose. I did. But God forbid I should ever complain about the oatmeal. And yes, I like oatmeal with raisins, just not peanut butter with raisins. And so we would maybe throw some apples in there or raisins or whatever it would, or cinnamon, what have you, I don't know. And here they are, and so they're wailing because they're tired of the manna. And it says, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. And on they go. Verse 6, and now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna. And they complained. And God again brought discipline. Yes, he provided them quail. Believe it or not, he gave them quail. But for a whole month, to the point where they absolutely hated it. Hey, you're tired of manna, you just wait till the quail, right? Yeah, so they got quail coming out their nose. They got quail. Chapter 12, they're camped out in this one particular place. It takes them 3 days to get there. They're still camped out there. So I'm saying this because all of this is grouped together. It's like one complaint after another. Chapter 12, verse 1, Miriam and Aaron. Miriam is his oldest sister. She's the oldest of the clan, of the family. Aaron is his older brother, 3 years older than her. I don't know how old Miriam is, but remember, she was the girl that watched baby Moses in the basket just to make sure that he was okay by the Nile. All right, so I don't know how old she is, maybe 10, 8, I don't know. Aaron was 3 years older than Moses. So Miriam is the oldest. And they start talking against Moses because of his Cushite wife. For he had married a Cushite. In other words, she was not a Jew. I am certain that she followed the Lord, however. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses, they asked? Hasn't he also spoken through us? And the Lord heard this. Moses was humble. And so God just said, you know, I've called Moses. He is the one that I am choosing. And God brought discipline, especially to Miriam. She became leprous, and then God healed her. So we come now to chapter 13, verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites, from each ancestral tribe, send one of its leaders. So the Lord commanded Moses. So at the Lord's command, Moses sent them out from the desert of Paran. Now, if you have a map, Paran is somewhere between where Israel is and the Gulf of Aqaba. So it's just a desert, and they're now going to spy out the land. And they're gone actually for a while, and they spy out the land. It says there in verse 17, when Moses sent them to explore Canaan, he said, go up through the Negev, that would be the southern portion of Israel, and on into the hill country. See what the land is like, and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. What kind of land do they live in? Is it good or bad? What kind of towns do they live in? And are they unwalled or fortified? What is the soil? How is the soil? Is it fertile or poor? Are there trees on it or not? Do your best to bring back some of the fruit of the land. It was the season for the first ripe grapes. Now, they came back with huge grapes. They did. Let's pick up the story now in verse 26. They came back to Moses. They've been gone for a while. They're spying, they're looking, they're spying, they're asking questions. They come back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. So there they are. And they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the people who had gone with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak that we mentioned earlier, come from the Nephilim. The Nephilim, by the way, are giants. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. That night, chapter 14, verse 1, you with me? That night, all the people of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in this desert. And I'm going to stop reading right there. This is like a redo from the previous year. It's like every time they come up against these difficult situations, it's like, God, we're going to die in the desert. Why did you bring us up out of Egypt? Were there not enough graves in Egypt that we now need to be buried, killed, and buried out here in the desert? Why did God call us out of Egypt? Why did he do all of these miracles just to have us die in the desert? And they go on and they say, we should choose a leader. Verse 4, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. That's their plan. We're going to go back. We would rather be slaves in Egypt. Now, keep in mind that God had just killed their entire Egyptian army, including the Pharaoh. How welcoming do you think the Egyptians will be for them now? Yeah, I'm not sure they're going to be having smiley faces. I think there's going to be a lot of angry people and probably want to kill them. That's my guess. Your God did this. This is what we're going to do to you. Yet they want to go back to Egypt. Now, truth be told, it is not hard whatsoever for this to happen. We can see God's miracles, and yet, when it comes to another hardship, we feel like God has abandoned us. And I want to be sensitive to that feeling. Because if you ever feel abandoned, either by people or God or both, it is an absolutely horrible feeling. You're wondering, God, why did you allow this only to drop me? For my family, he had led us all the way down from Virginia Beach, Virginia, down to Orlando. And so, excuse me. And so I began to test the market, and I discovered that there were this is now 1994. I discovered there were about 60 dealerships, like car dealerships, in the metro Orlando area. Now I'm including Mount Dora, just so you know. About 60 dealerships. So I went around to a number of them and kind of test marketed. I'm wanting to start a paint touch-up business, and I'm speaking to the manager, and I'd like to know, would you be interested in trying my services? Now, I said a lot more than that, but that's the gist of what I shared with them. So many, half of them, sure, we'd give you a try. Why not? So I came back. I was excited. I started knocking on the doors, talking to those same managers. No. And it's like, what, did you lie to me then a month ago? Come on. I mean, I didn't say that to them. But I was just, God, where is it? 2 weeks, I went through the deal, I went to the vast majority of those dealerships. Every single dealership closed door. And I was trained how to do that. You go in, you offer, this is what I do. I see a bumper out there that needs taken care of, and I'm going to take care of that bumper for you, no charge. I had 0 dealerships, 0 managers allow me to touch a car. I've shared this story with you, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. God and I had a talk. And in the midst of that talk, God challenged me. He said, Mike, I need to deal with your heart. There are certain, and he used the term planks of rotten wood. And it was because of the image that what I was viewing, restoration of a house. He began to speak to me in this way. And I need to work this out. I knew how to throw an amazing party, a pity party, excuse me. And God crashed my pity party, and he spoke directly to my heart. And I said, wow, God, I need your help. And I go to the next dealership. And I was pit stop for about an hour and a half. I wasn't sure I wanted to do anything the rest of the day, and it was only lunchtime, just so you know. I wanted to just crawl under a rock. God, I feel like you've abandoned me. You brought my family all the way from Virginia Beach, Virginia, all the way down here. We're staying with Meredith's family, and I'm supposed to be starting a business, and this is going horribly. No dealership is willing to allow me to even touch a vehicle. And so I just said, God, I believe you have called me here. I've given it the good old college try, and it completely failed. Absolutely impossible. And remember what I told you. The problem with the good old college try is it does not embrace faith. It tries hard, even with enthusiasm, but it lacks faith. And in that moment, I totally lacked faith. I felt abandoned. I felt like I had led my family into a desert. And God, where are you? First dealership, closed door. Okay, God. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to obey you. I'm just going to obey you. I went to the next dealership, and I met a man by the name of Nader Malavi. And he was the used car manager at Holler Chevrolet. And he said, we just got rid of our painter. I'll give you a shot. I built a friendship with Nader Malavi over the next several years. He allowed me to do that job as well as take the account. The next week, actually the next 2 weeks, one dealership after the other started coming through. And within a month, I had filled up my schedule. But for 2 weeks, absolutely nothing until God dealt with my heart. Actually, as I built that relationship with Nader Malavi, he later was promoted to oversee all of the reconditioning for the Holler Classic stores. That is, when he bought a car at an auction, it went through the recon center, and he asked me to do the work there at the recon center for the paint. Huge account. But when I was at that point, and I was just complaining and throwing my pity party, God had to crash it and speak to me, and it was all about faith. You see, when they come back from scouting out the land, I can only imagine that in one sense they were excited, but it was like, guys, this is an impossible situation. They're much larger than we are. They're stronger than we are. We're completely outmatched. How are we going to get to the people in their fortified cities with all their walls? We can't do this. God brought us out here just to die. And there's this sense of desperation, and they're throwing the biggest pity party imaginable. They are wailing. And God, I didn't read it to you, but God comes down in a cloud over the tabernacle, and he calls them. And Aaron and Moses go before him. And the glory of the Lord appeared, it says, at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites, verse 11. The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt? Now, you probably remember the story, because after this long discussion back and forth with Moses, trying to defend the people of Israel, God says, here's what I'm going to do. I made a decision. I'm going to be nice. I'm not going to kill everybody. I'm going to let them live. I'm going to forgive their sin. But here's what needs to happen. 39 more years on the backside of the desert. And all of those 39, plus the 1 year that they've already been in the desert, all those 40 years, God did something in their heart, preparing them to take the land, because they were nowhere near ready. They needed to have faith, and eventually the Moses generation died off, and the Joshua generation was raised up. They had seen these miracles, and instead of complaining, probably because they were too young, I don't know, instead of complaining, they embraced God with faith. Now, I'm not going to suggest that they did not complain. There was some of that. God brought his discipline, but it's like they got it. We're not going to be like the Moses generation. We're going to embrace whatever God has for us in faith, and he is going to lead the way. We're going to go into the land, and we will take the land. I don't care how big they are. I don't care how strong they are. I don't care how many fortified walls, cities there are. We're going to take the land, and they were filled with faith. And God was able to use that generation because they were ready. They had been prepared in the desert. Hard times. I don't know what it would be like. Excuse me. I don't know what it would be like to have manna every day. I'm not sure I would appreciate that too much. Thank you to my wife for the amazing variety of meals. May, Juliana, for how they cook. I love it. I am so blessed to live under that roof with those ladies cooking for me. And I'm so grateful that I don't have to eat manna every day. And I would hate it if my wife said, Michael, you're tired of a hamburger? Okay, then it's going to be chicken for the next 30 days straight. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's all I'm cooking for you. Till it came out my nose. Regardless, see, God has had to deal with me, and I'm going to suggest to you this. Experience can tell us, yeah, don't do that. But when God steps in, and contrary to your wisdom, see, I've tried this before. It doesn't work. I've tried it a lot of times. It doesn't work. If God says, this is what I'm doing. Like, you know what? I know they're bigger and stronger. I know the odds against you are like 10 to 1. But see, I like those odds. The Israelites didn't. God loved the odds. And he said, here we go. go in and take the land. Watch what I can do. See, he called them out of Egypt, out of slavery, for this very reason, to take them into the land. And now here's the opportunity. God had been promising that land to them for 430 years. That's a long awaiting promise. So here they are, and all they could do is complain. But see, I get it. God brought us to this. There's absolutely no way that we can do it. God is probably thinking, you know what, you're absolutely right. You can't do it. See, that's why you've got me on your side. I am going to do this. They didn't get it. They complained. They couldn't do it. Rebellion, knowing that it's there to take the land, because that's God's goal for them, rebellion says, we can't. Faith says, we should. If you have a Bible in front of you rather than your phone reading it, look at verse 30. I want you to highlight, underline, do something to emphasize Caleb's response. He silences the people and he says, we should. Emphasize that. We should. See, experience says we can't. See, I get it what the people are saying. When you look at it, the odds, no, this is not good. I really don't like these odds. And it says, look there in verse 31, but the people who had gone up with him said, we can't. We can't. I'm not suggesting that you never listen to wisdom. God allows us to grow in wisdom. But there are times in which God says, I hear it. I get it. But I want you to do it anyway. When we went into the house and we were looking around, we just said, we can't. Seriously, God, no way. But when we were done walking through the house, we both sat down in what presently is our homeschool room, second floor, right there at the top of the stairs, and we sat down. It was a game room for this. The model house that we were looking at. And we sat down with all the kids. I remember saying, Meredith, what do you think? And she had like this shaking of her head with a smile. I was like, that's how I feel too. Like, this is just not possible, but I feel like this is what God wants us to do. And it was nonsense to me. I couldn't believe I even said it. But God immediately turned on the spigot. It was like a little bit of provision, a little bit more provision, over and over. And so conventional wisdom would say, no, you can't. But then God said, you should. I can remember when God had me working on a job. I'm just going to share two quick stories with you. See, God's wisdom says about human wisdom, that's right, that's true, but if he says that we're supposed to do it, that is, take the promised land, that is now God's will. And he will make a way. He will, if there's vision, there will always be what? Provision. If God gives you vision and this is truly him, it's not something you've just thought up. It's not just something that you had a dream about and I think I'm going to try it. It has truly been confirmed. This is what God wants you to do, where there's a vision. Truly from God, he will always bring provision. That is just who God is. And he will purposefully bring you to this place where you absolutely say, I can't. I can't. But then God stirs up faith. And he says, you should. So here I was, I'm working on a bumper. And it is a pearl bumper. Now, most bumpers, just so you know, I'm not going to get into too much detail, there's a base coat and a clear coat. And when you spray your base, you can tell right away whether it's matching the paint that's already there or not. But see, a 3-stage, which is a base coat, a pearl, and then a clear coat, you can't do that. And so when I painted this bumper, I did it according to the formula I'm supposed to. But I and I had to panel spray, which means you spray the bumper right up to the fenders, both sides, passengers and driver's fender. The fender, if you don't know car parts, the fender's between the front door and the bumper. Goes over the wheel well. And so the damage went all the way up so I had to panel spray. Number one, for normal paints, you shouldn't panel spray. You definitely shouldn't panel spray if you're spraying a pearl bumper. And this was a pearl white, an off-white. And it was so hard to match. But I had to do it. So I sprayed it, and when I was done, and I took the paper off, okay, which covers the fender. When I took it off, it looked terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I just thought, Lord, I just spent 4, 5, 6 hours, whatever it is, repairing this bumper, and it was a Navigator front bumper, huge honking bumper. So much damage. And I just said, God, I did this one for free, and I have to make it right. I've got to make this right. So I told them, and I said, hey, I'm coming back tomorrow, and I'm going to redo the bumper. I redid the bumper. Looked a little better, but it still looked terrible. I showed it to one of the body shop guys, and he said, wow, Mike, that's a really cool-looking two-tone car you have there. Yeah, it's not supposed to be. So I talked to the manager, and I said, can we just have the body shop do it? Because when they encounter this, they blend it into each fender. So they have spray both fenders and the bumper, not just the bumper. And they said, Mike, we can't do that. You told us you would do it, and we gave promise to these people at a price, and we can't eat that much. Because the body shop would have charged 5 times more than what I would have, easily, if not more. Mike, we need you to do it. To the point where this account was on the line. And it was the only account I had. I'm working full-time pastoring, and I'm doing this, and I encountered this. I can't afford to lose this. So I went back, me and God, and I had a discussion with him. I said, God, I can't do this. I've tried twice, and a pearl, it takes a long time. I can't do it, but I have to do it. I need you to show me how I can do this. Because I've tried it, and I just can't. And as I went home, and as I'm trying to fall asleep, the Lord begins to show me what I'm supposed to do. And it was very time-consuming. I put together probably 10 spray cards with slight modifications with each one. And I'm recording the rest, what I'm adding, and so on. And so I spray each one, clear each little card, and then I put each one up to it. And the one that matched it the closest, that's the one I was going to use. And finally, I got one that looked fairly close. Now, the problem is, when you spray something on a spray card as opposed to a car, it can still, if it looks like it matches, it can still not match, just because of the surface that you're spraying on. I hope you caught that. So I say, okay, God, this is the one I'm going to try. But there's a really good chance it still won't match. And I have poured hours into this, but I have to get this right. And so I just said, God, I'm going to do it. And I'll be honest with you, I laid my hands on the car. And I said, God, I need you to do a miracle. I have tried so hard to fix this problem. Here's my last effort. If this doesn't work, I lose this account. Because it means I've tried everything possible. And even what I did, I don't know of any painter that would have gone to that extent to do it right, but I had to. And I prayed, and I sprayed the bumper. And I can remember that moment. I'm taking off the paper, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh, Jesus, thank you. It matched. I was so grateful. And see, sometimes God has to do something absolutely supernatural to step in and make things right, maybe provide $500 that you didn't have, or maybe, like in this situation, he's going to show you how to make that $500. So I don't know, maybe as I was spraying, some angel was behind it making sure it landed just right, and I don't know, maybe God did that. And here I am thinking, he kind of just showed me how to do it. Oh, it was more than that, Mike. But here is another time in which I think it was an angel. It was a little while later in a customer vehicle. So when you do a customer vehicle, it has to be done that day. Then it has to have time to cure. And if there's any particles in it, you got to wet sand and buff it out. It's got to be perfect for the customer. The color of the vehicle bumper was black. That's one strike. The body damage was pretty extensive. Strike number 2. I can handle that. Okay. So I prep it, everything's prepped, papered. I'm spraying it, and I'm looking around, and the clouds are forming fast. I can't stop what I'm doing. I'm already into it. I'm spraying my clear coat, and I am just saying, God, it is dark gray above me. That is a bad sign. And I'm just praying. I'm praying in the Spirit. I'm praying in English. I'm just saying, God, I need your help. And I'm spraying it away. Help me, no rain. Because once it rains just a little bit, you're done. You've ruined your bumper. And you start all over. And I can't do that. The customer's going to be waiting. And so I spray it. I finally finish it up. It hasn't rained yet. I have no idea how except God's divine intervention. I've been praying the whole way, right? So I quickly pull it under the overhang. That's where my van is, and I pull it in there too. And suddenly, on the tin roof, you can hear the rain. And within a minute, it's a deluge. That is not a good thing either, because generally when it's downpouring like that, the wind blows, and it's going to blow all of that rain onto my bumper. And I just stand there, God, please keep this bumper safe. And I'm trying to block the wind a little bit here. I'm doing whatever I can do. God, please. About 30 minutes later, the clear coat's hardened, and I look down at it. And there's just a little bit of light, and that's actually good because you can see any imperfections with just a little bit of light. And I'm looking at it more and more. I'm expecting garbage, everything. There is absolutely nothing in the bumper. It is probably the only bumper I have done in my life in which there was absolutely nothing. Like it just came out of a body shop. And I'm looking at it saying, that's impossible. God, how did you do this? As I say, I think sometimes God allows his angels to kind of just, maybe they were around there. Oh, Mike, you think your body's blocking? Oh, I've got angels all around this thing. I don't know. But God stepped in because I had to do this. My back was up against the wall. And I'm saying this because some of you, your back is up against the wall, and you're wondering, God, where are you in this situation? I have tried over and over again. I need you to intervene here. I need you to step in and make this right. I have tried and tried. I can't do anymore. And just so you know, I've said that so many times, and yet God shows me a little bit more that I can do. And I have to do it. If there's an opportunity, if there's a way to provide for my family financially, I'm going to work. I got to do this. But there are times in which your back is up against the wall. Absolutely no way, God. And that is when, for me, God has done the most profound miracles. Now, some of you are thinking, well, Mike, those are only bumpers. That's like little stuff compared to what I'm facing right now. So here's what I'm going to say to you. Yep, each bumper like that, and there's been a lot of those like this. Each bumper was like God's daily provision of manna, a little miracle. But I tell you what, if you were to go outside right now and find white flakes that looks like snow all around, looks like coriander seed, but it tastes like honey, that is what manna was, it would freak you out. And if you found that happening in your backyard every day for the next 40 years, I think that would pretty much impress you. It apparently did not for them. And when they came back, the very promise they've been waiting for 430 years, having seen God provide 20 miracles plus at least 365 days since manna, except on the Sabbath. And they were able to collect twice as much, and manna never came on the Sabbath because you were not to collect it. So God provided for them. And yes, for me, these bumpers may be like manna. For you, your problem is more like life and death, and it's like taking the land. And you're thinking, just can't, tried, we can't. Odds against us 10 to 1, no better, 100 to 1, can't do it. You are in a perfect place for God to flex his muscles and show you how good he is. He will David says in one of his Psalms, I have never seen the righteous begging for bread, because he gives us our daily bread. God provides. So in a sense, I have experienced manna, if you will, in my own life. But I want you to see a contrast now. I've got 3 minutes here. I want you to see a contrast, chapter 14, verse 24. But, there's a lot of buts in this passage. And I want to focus on this but. I've entitled the sermon, but. Just one word, but. Here's what it says, verse 24. But, because my servant Caleb, so this is God speaking to the people, because my servant Caleb, remember Joshua, Caleb, good report, because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. Because all the others of that generation were going to die in the desert. Not Joshua and Caleb. They would take the land. Church, God is looking for people with a different spirit. And having that different spirit will then prompt them to follow the Lord no matter what. When they come across giants in the land, they embrace it. They stop saying we can't. That's human wisdom. It's not that that's wrong. It's just that when God says do it, that's when we respond we should. Caleb had a different spirit. Maybe some of us, and I know myself so many times, God needed to change my spirit. By his spirit, by the way. And give me a different spirit. Give me a different attitude. Give me a different perspective, his perspective, and just follow him. Follow him. Because here's his goal. Look over there in verse 21. Speaking to the people, nevertheless, as surely as I live, and as surely as the glory of the Lord. Now, the NIV says fills. Technically, in the Hebrew, it's future. Will fill the whole earth. That's God's goal. Why is God allowing you to go through these struggles? Because it's his goal that the earth be filled with his glory. It will happen. And he's going to do it when he's rescuing you, when he provides you, when your back is up against the wall, and you're saying, God, I can't. I've done everything I can't. Help me. Help me. Cry out to him, help me. And then watch what he does. And watch, because God is building this testimony that as you declare it, it impacts people. And the earth becomes filled with his glory. That's God's goal. It's not so that you are filled with glory. It's not about you. It's about him. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it feels impossible. Yes, from human perspective and experience and wisdom, it is impossible. But I think there's a passage in the New Testament that said, but all things with God are possible. In another place, nothing is impossible for God. That's what he told Mary, the mother of Jesus. Because God can do anything, church. So I want you to just stand with me as I close in prayer.